And welcome everyone to the special meeting closed session of the Ojai City Council, Tuesday, August 8th, 2023. We have a quorum. Could we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor.
Kristen, thank you.
Mayor Sticks.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Francina.
Here.
Councilmember Rule.
Here.
Councilmember Lang.
Here.
And Councilmember Whitman is absent so far.
Thank you very much. And is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve our short agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll second it, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we will go ahead and take a public comment, and we will begin first with Robin Gerber and then Renee Roth.
Okay.
And then Larry Steingold after that.
Hi, I'm Robin Gerber. I live here in Ojai. I'm not happy to stand here and say that you're all about to violate the Brown Act. Again, you're going into closed session ostensibly because there is a threat of litigation, except there isn't. Please read the letter to the city from Cabrillo's lawyer, Ms. McCree-Ortiz. Do you see the word litigation? Or even a close second? The answer is no. Upon being asked if she was threatening litigation, here's what Ms. Ortiz responded in an email to John Drucker, who can't be here but authorized me to tell you this. She said, "I was not threatening litigation in any way, shape, or form. Certainly we have not reached that point where there is significant exposure to litigation because the application is still being processed." Mr. Summers, are you reading the tea leaves again? Are you, Mr. Scott? Or reading between the lines? Let's review. Closed sessions are extraordinary action for a public body and should not be used unless there is a clear necessity that meets statutory requirements. You don't have that here. It doesn't pass the laugh or smell test, as we used to say in law school. To agendize a closed session off a letter that does nothing more than explain in great detail Cabrillo's issues with this city. They feel we're dragging our feet on truly affordable housing project, which I'm sure we wouldn't want to do. And they're a nonprofit, and we love them. You, the council, need to discuss this matter openly, please. Unless and until you can meet the requirements for closed session, but you're not there yet. And if you do proceed to closed session now, you will be inviting more scrutiny from the district attorney, and we know how much money that has cost us, the city. There's nothing to hide here, at least not yet. The items in Ms. Ortiz's letter should be discussed in front of us, the public. Do you want affordable housing or not? If you truly do, you will move toward that goal by addressing the issues that have caused delay and by following the Brown Act, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next, we have Renee Roth, then Larry Steingold.
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Roth. Nice to meet you, Mr. Mark Scott, and to have Carl with us today. And hello, City Council. I am here echoing some of the same comments that Robin Gerber was mentioning. You know, we've been talking about affordable housing for how many months? Constantly, it's on everybody's mind. We have many people who we know are living in the edge and are houseless and are in need of housing. We have it right here on our own city council property. It makes many people in the community want to reach out and do more. You have an opportunity to embrace a proven provider of affordable housing who's already done 2 other projects in our city. So we all know that housing law has become way more complex because of Senate Bill 35. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an expert in housing law. I'm not afraid to read the laws, and I see that they are very complicated. I would like to see Matt Summers and Cabrillo Housing and the City Council agree on what are the laws that need to be followed in this situation. And let's hold the public hearings and have the meeting and have the discussion on how to get this housing project vetted by the community so we understand what we're buying into. We all know we need it. Now, we also know that there is a group of people in our community who are against any housing, and they will do anything they can to shut down housing, including filing lawsuits and threatening CEQA violations. And that is what these law firms are doing. And it's known, and it's a known way to destroy a housing project by saying you're violating CEQA, you're violating the laws. So please, we have very little time to get this project going. Let's get it going and agree on what rules need to be followed and how many units the city of Ojai can provide going forward to address our major housing problems. And you are the leaders we are looking to show us how to do this. A lot is resting on your shoulders, and I want you to do it right. I want you to get it right this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Next, we have Larry Steingold.
Larry Steingold. I'm not as eloquent or as knowledgeable about all the laws and what have you, but if there hasn't been anything built here for 12 years or more that is affordable or can be afforded by people who don't have a lot of money and who've been lived here forever, okay, and are locals that are now getting forced out, how did you get here? You people just didn't do this. This has been happening, okay, whether it's people who've lived here or if people have left, investors, developers. There's got to be a better way. I mean, the state has passed a law, I believe 649, I believe that's the law that allows preference for people in a community who have been, are being in danger of being displaced. Why don't you just put it on the agenda now and pass it tonight? That way, everybody going forward will know, hey, these people have preference, they're under the gun. But that's productive, that's getting stuff done. I mean, these 50 units, look, I can argue 3 floors, 2 floors, parking, whatever. The point is we need some housing for people in Ojai who are being displaced. That's our job, we live here. Okay, then you have familiar, Mr. Whitman has family, wants to live here. You have family, want to live here. They can't afford to live here. Granted, this is not a first homeowner buy. Maybe it's a second homeowner, but they still can't afford it. So we need to do something. And how we got to this, is this process? Is this missed dates? Is this just, sloppy? I don't know. But, do we need a letter from another attorney saying, hey, you guys have, we're not in sync with what you're saying, politely. And I know they didn't threaten litigation, but it surely sounds like it. Thank you, and that's from my lifestyle. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone on Zoom, Weston?
Yes, Mayor. We have one raised hand on Zoom, William Wyrick. William, you are able to unmute and you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just like to make a quick comment. Cabrillo is a very professional organization, and I think they certainly are expressing frustration and don't want to litigate, but are expressing frustration because from what I can gather from reading their letter, they feel like their permit is being treated in a discretionary fashion and not in a ministerial way. My experience with them is they're perfectly willing to be sensitive to local design considerations and local design sensitivities if that ministerial permit right is respected. And if it's not respected, I think we lose influence over the kind of design we would like to see in their effort. And that raises a larger question. Sacramento has been very clear in a series of laws that everybody knows about, basically saying to cities, if you use your regulatory apparatus to shape workforce and affordable housing to local considerations, that's fine as long as you don't use that regulatory process to obstruct that housing supply. And cities unfortunately, that get a reputation for being difficult to work with. For example, not respecting ministerial permits from an organization, a ministerial permit application from an organization like Cabrillo, kind of get on a list. And that list is the threat of losing local discretion when the legislative intent is not respected in terms of the use of the local regulatory apparatus to promote what fits Ojai, not just to say, no, we're not going to have this kind of organization operating in our community. So I would urge you to please take what measures are necessary to try to reestablish a good faith relationship with Cabrillo. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Is that it, Wesley?
No more raised hands, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Well, we will move on to the closed session
May I-
conference with
may I
legal
have- ask
conference.
a question, please, while we're still in open session? Can you respond to the statement made by Robin Gerber, even though this is a closed session, since the comment was made in open session, can you respond?
Through the mayor, the council would be lawful to meet in closed session. We listed the item under 2 items. The second is the one that was challenged regarding significant exposed litigation against the city related to a written communication threatening litigation, the copy of which is available for inspection in the clerk's office. The clear import of the letter from Ms. McCree-Ortiz dated August 2nd is that if her demands aren't met, she'll sue the city. It appears that she's made a later statement withdrawing or modifying that statement. However, that wasn't provided to the city. That was provided to someone else. We're going to stick with the letter that she's provided to the city, which the clear import of which threatens litigation, and that's a lawful basis to go into closed session as listed on item number 2 of the agenda. Thank you.
Mr. City
I have
Manager? Yep.
Something, yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything, because I'm not used to talking publicly about what we're gonna talk about in closed session. I can guarantee you that in 34 years as a city manager, no one can find any instance where any DA has ever told me that what I was putting on closed sessions wasn't legal. Look, do the search. There's none out there. And what we're doing today is not talking about the project. It's not talking about pros and cons. It's not talking about the city's position on affordable housing. It's none of those things. We can't do that. We can't go into closed session and do that. It's something way more narrow than that. And I'm not going to describe what that is. I'll describe it to all of you in closed session where we're allowed to have a confidential discussion of it. But that's all we're doing. We're not going to violate the Brown Act.
Thank you.
I would like to.
Wait just one
sorry.
second. Councilmember Rule, did you want to say something?
Once again, I just have to weigh in here that we are making assumptions that there was a threat of litigation by the fact that she said smell the roses or something to that effect. So, and we have direct contradiction by her that she was not threatening litigation. My reading of that letter was could I please put a fire under you to deal with this? So I understand there's different interpretations. I also think that we received a letter from John Drucker saying that there were additional requirements for threatening litigation, that you had to fulfill other sub-requirements that I didn't see were fulfilled. That having been said, I am but one voice in this. And so once again, we can say we assume that we're reading between the lines, and we assume that there is an implicit threat of litigation, yet we have her complete statement saying such is not true. That having been, I just think that we need to say that. We need to say that our interpretation of what is said is our interpretation of what is said. And when someone tells you that's not the case,
Thank you.
we do or we
Councilmember.
don't think about it.
I just want to remind council, we have a limited amount of time, so we've got to get going. Mr. City
No,
Manager,
we're
did you want
allowed
to
to
respond?
talk about that
Yeah.
issue in closed session.
Okay.
And I'm not going to do a legal analysis in front of the world on something that somebody is telling us we're in violation of the law on. That doesn't make any sense in the world for us to sit here and have that discussion. We can go in closed session and talk about whether or not there's appropriate reason to be in closed session, and that's the place to have that discussion.
Thank you.
And
Mr.
I'll just add
Yep.
very, very briefly that, as stated before, we're on a lawful basis to go into closed session. Statements by Ms. McCree-Ortiz to a non-city official later don't change the language in her letter. There is a second basis listed for the closed session, which is itself separately lawful. And with that, I obviously defer to the majority, but we are legal to go to closed session.
Okay, any other comments before we go to closed session?
Yeah, I just,
Mr.
okay.
City Attorney?
Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay, all right.
I just want to say what our interim city manager said is critical, because we're already getting letters from people either for or against the project. Just by having this closed session, people are concerned that we're making, not just a narrow decision, but a broader decision having to do with the pros and cons of the project. So it's critical that the public understands that we are not going to be doing that in closed session.
And,
Okay.
yeah, through the mayor, I'm happy to affirm that is not the case. As noted, neither of the closed session discussions regarding litigation risks and options thereof enables a decision on the project. No decision will be made today on the project, and no decision can be made on the project, not until various public hearings and lawful processes have been done. Today is a very narrow discussion of a litigation issue and a procedural issue, not a decision on the project, not a discussion on the project. And Mr. Scott and I will be very robust in confining the discussion to the narrow litigation and procedural issues at stake, not any decision on the project. That has to come later.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will go ahead and adjourn to closed session.
Is Lucas coming to the closed